Today we're going to talk about the Nikon D850, so I'm just going to run through some basic settings and getting started with the camera if you're not too familiar with this. So a little familiarization on the basics. Not going to go into real details straight off the bat, just going to take you around the camera and show you the essential things to get started on it. And later on we'll go into more specifics and go into a bit more detail. First off, you'll need to enter a battery and memory card. So you're underneath, if you turn it upside down, just here you can clip that open and pop that little button there, releases the battery, and then just pop it back in again. Close. Memory cards are on the side here, and you just push that down to open, and you've got an XQD that you can pop open by pressing that little grey button there and pop back in again. And also there's an SD card slot as well. You can use both at the same time, and you can have one that sets to go as a backup, so it copies to both cards, or you can set one up maybe as RAW and one as JPEG. There's various different options you can look at in the menu. We can have a look at that later. Attaching the lens, obviously you need to release the cap at the front, and then align the white dots as usual, straight on there and twist. Flick the switch at the front to turn it on the top. And that should light up here, and then you'll be able to see the display, and you'll be able to see a little readout come up telling you what mode it's in. You've got M for manual. You can see there it says RAW. That's the setting I've got it on at the moment. Various others, you've got how many pictures roughly you can take with the memory card you have in at the moment, which is set to 868. Obviously that will change depending on what kind of card you've got in there, what size card. You've got the battery life just above that. You've got a little slot there that shows you the XQD card is in, and a few other settings that we can go through at another point. Next thing to do will be to format the card. You can do that from the menu, but the easiest way I find to do this is to find the two buttons which have got format written on it. If I just get that for you here, you can see that one in red saying format there, and also on the top you've got another one here saying format here. So all you do is press those two buttons at the same time. And if you see the display, it will come up flashing with FOR. So once it's flashing, then you can select which slot. We've only got one to select, which is XQD, but if there's another one, you can scroll up and down using this button here, and then press them both again together, and then that will flash format, and then go back to the original setting. So if you want to have a look that that's done, you can switch the camera off, and you can see now I've got 2.3 thousand photos that I can take on this memory card. You can double check that by going into the menu, into the viewfinder at the back here. Just press play. If it says folder contains no images, you're good to go. Next thing to look at would be the viewfinder on the top at the front, obviously, where you'll find every viewfinder. Right here, but there's a couple of functions that are really cool on this one. You've got a built-in viewfinder cover, which you can just flick down to cover up and flick back to open again. You can use that for stopping light coming in when you're doing long exposure photography when it's on a tripod. You don't want anything to come into to the back during a long exposure, like somebody with a car going by and flashing their lights in the back of the viewfinder. So cover that up for long exposures. You've also got on the side a little dial here for those of you who wear glasses that will change the focus. So you can adjust that so you blind people can see too. Shooting modes, obviously, you can change between aperture mode, manual mode, shutter priority. There's various different ones you'll get with every camera, very similar, the same. At the moment you can see on the top there it's in manual mode. You see the M there for manual. And you can change that by going into this little setting here. It says mode just here. If you press that down, and then scroll through, you'll see aperture, A, M for manual, P for program, S for shutter, A for auto, and then back to manual again. Okay, so to control ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, three different areas, very similar to other cameras, but I'll show you where these are. Just in front of the shutter release button here, you have the aperture control. You just scroll to the sides. If you have a look on the live view screen, you can probably see that changing there, the f-stop at the bottom. You'll also see that when you look through the viewfinder at the top here as well, obviously. But if you have it in live view, you can see, and it's easier and clearer for you to see if I do it like that. So you can see the f-stop changing. That's that. ISO. ISO is set on this to 64 as the native low ISO, which is great. So really nice, clear, no noise. If you want to change ISO, you simply hold down the ISO button, which is just located there next to the top of the shutter release. Just press that down, scroll, and you can increase and decrease the ISO. If you want automatic ISO, you can put that on by pressing the ISO button down and then hitting this little switch here. So that's the aperture button again, and you just slide that left or right, and you can see that ISO going to auto. Okay, so next, shutter speed, which is right here. And you can see the shutter speed changing there on the top. Okay? Very easy, up and down. That's it. So you can see at the top there at the moment then, we've got a 40th of a second shutter speed. It's on f9 and ISO 6400 on ISO auto as that's flashing. There you go. Okay, function buttons on the top of the camera here. We've got 4 different buttons. One we've already gone across already, which is the mode button, which will then change your mode to auto, manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, program mode, etc., etc. Also next to that we have the focus grouping. We'll change it from single point to a wider grouping. You can see that on the top there, if I can get that in focus for you, just at this top left-hand corner. See that now it's on single point, it's like a little dot. And you can change that to wider settings. You'll see that as you look through the viewfinder as well. I prefer to keep it in single point autofocus. It works better for me for virtually every occasion unless I'm shooting a really fast-moving object or person, like for a sports photography. If it's events or anything like that, I would use single point, even for portraits, and I can get right in on the eye. It's the easiest for me to do, as a preference. There's also white balance control up here, and also you can change the type of export from fine to normal, as for your JPEG settings, etc. As you do that, you'll also see, when you scroll through, it will change the amount of photos you can take. So if you're getting towards the end of your memory card and you're kind of screwed, you've been shooting maybe in 4K or something like that, or 8K, you can change it from a fine JPEG to a normal JPEG, and it will increase your amount of photos you can take by 7 to 10K straight off the bat. Okay, so the dial on the top changes the functions for your shot, the type of shot that you're taking. You change that by popping down the button on the side here. You won't be able to move the dial without doing that. So pop that down, it releases it, and then you can scroll through. So you can see right here, the first one there, which is what you'll have it on most of the time with the S. And the S is just a single shot. We have a continual shot, which is basically your burst mode. Continual low and continual high, different rates, different shots, different amounts of shots. So that's a higher burst rate, CH. And you've also got a quiet mode for shooting inside and outside of live view. The quiet mode when you're not in live view isn't actually that quiet. In fact, I think it's about the same as it is normally. But when you're in live mode, if you go to quiet, then it's actually silent. It's a silent mode completely, so you can shoot in an auditorium, say in front of something very quiet, so everybody's in a theater and doesn't want to have any noise from photographers. You can stick it in silent mode. You can literally just stick it in silent and then press the back of the camera. It will take a photo, and it won't make a single noise at all, which is great. The lens cap's on, so you won't see any photos. Good skills. After that, you've got burst mode and quiet mode, and then you've also got the timer, obviously there. You can change the timer by going into the menu, which we'll look at another time through the menu. But you're set to a standard of 5 seconds, I believe, so plenty of time to set the camera up on the tripod and get in front of it. Or also, if you want to take a picture, long exposure picture, you can pop it on a tripod, and then you don't have to worry about any camera shake. Pop it on there, hit the shutter release, take your hands off, step away from the tripod. It will give 5 seconds to calm the camera down from any knocks that you've done by pressing the shutter, and it will take a perfect long exposure without any wobble at all. That's all, something I always use. And finally on there, MUP, which is mirror up, which obviously does exactly what it says on the menu. It lifts the mirror up. You can use that for when you're cleaning the sensor, if you ever clean the sensor. We can go through that in a separate video. Good idea. What's next? The menu. You can access the menu through this little button here that says menu. So you just pop that on there, and you've got the playback menu, and you've got shooting menus, film menus, and custom setting menus, and then the tools of the setup menu there. And you've also got my menu, so you can add things to that if you want. So if you've got any favorites, you can go in here and you can add items to that to easily access those favorites that you have. The cool thing about this is it's also touch controlled, if that's the right word for it, I don't know. And you can flick through the menus easily like this if you want to make your screen all dirty with thumbprints. I personally just click through the old school way because I don't want mine to have thumbprints all over it. Okay, so just above the menu button, you've got the play button to scroll through photos that you've taken. So just hit that button there, and it'll bring up your photos. You can scroll through the photos by using this controller here, right and left. And you can also use your thumb to scroll through the photos and leave messy marks all over the screen. You can see all the EXIF data and all the details of the photo, such as the histogram, just by clicking up on a photo. So if you click up on that, the histogram pops up, which is really useful. You can see that's a pretty decently balanced photo. You've obviously got the white clipping at the right-hand side and the black clipping at the left-hand side. You can set it up so the photo will only display for a while to save battery, which is why it went away for after about 5-10 seconds. You can change that in the menu. I've got it set up to about 10 seconds. So on here, once I said you scroll up and down, you can see everything in here. Manual mode is what I've used for this. You can see there, M, a 50th of a second, f3.2, ISA 280, 48mm. It's quite handy to look back if you were in a different room earlier on and you liked what setting you had. You can scroll back to your photo that you took in the other room, have a look on here and go, great, so that was a good setting. You can scroll straight back to it. That's what I'd use it for anyway. Also in here, you've got the other data at the bottom of what kind of mode your camera's in and the size of the resolution, etc., the date and the time. Might be useful. There's also a number count at the top, as well as you scroll through the photos, and also tells you what memory card you're using as well. Right, so that's that. If you want to delete it, you can just literally press this button here, the delete button next to the play button. It'll ask you if you really want to delete it or not, and it's here to OK or cancel. So delete and then cancel. If you want to delete it, just press it again, delete, and it's gone. Done. Other buttons down here, we've got a lock, obviously displayed there with a key, which is pretty self-explanatory, and it comes up on the screen there. So once you press that, it will lock it, and you won't be able to delete that because it's protected. So when you do try and delete, it will say cannot delete protected images. Genius. Take that off by pressing the same button again. If you want to zoom in on these photos, you can do it in 2 different ways. You can scroll in like this, press OK to come back out again, which is the center button here. Or you can just zoom in using the plus button here and back out again using the minus. You can see my notes now, giving everything away. Just underneath that, you've got the OK button. It'll ask you sometimes if you want to press OK, that's where it is. And underneath that, a really, really cool button I use all the time. Can you see this okay? Why am I asking you? You're not going to be able to tell me. Function 2, FN2. At the moment, I've got this set up, so when you hold it down, you see at the bottom a little bar comes up. And then, if you just scroll right, it adds stars. The good thing about this is it transfers over to Lightroom. So if I give that 2 stars, when I upload everything to Lightroom, it will keep those stars on there. So I've already done my selects in camera. So when I get to doing my selects, all I do is press my filter button in Lightroom, and it filters everything to 1 or 2 stars or whatever I want it to be. So I don't have to do my selects again. So when my downtime, when I'm shooting, I'll just go through my photos and I'll give them star ratings. Click through, yeah, no, delete. So when I get into the office, get back to the studio, whatever, it's really easy for me to get my edits done quickly. What else? Okay, let's move across to the right. There's a cool little feature on the new Nikon, which is like a little joystick. So you won't be able to see this on screen, but basically when you've got it on your focal point, like your single point focus on the screen, you'll see that little square. And you'll want to move that around. Say I want to focus on this area here because my subject's up in the corner. I'm not going to move the whole camera because I want to keep that framing. So I can just grab my joystick here and that moves it around. You'll see it move around when you're looking through the viewfinder. In live view, it's the same thing. You can see it, come on, moving around like this. It's a bit slower on live view. And yeah, that's how you select your focal point. One thing to notice with that, there is a locking function to stop you moving it around. As you can see there, the L. If you flick this across the L, you won't be able to move this around. So if you're ever stuck and you can't realize why you can't focus or move your focal point around, just check that because it's really easy to click that when you're walking around. So keep an eye on that one. What else? Yeah, if you don't want to use the joystick, you can just use this to go left and right, old school. No problem. AF on, I've got this set up as back button autofocus. You hold that down, it will focus for you. It won't work too well in live view, but there you go. Then you can hit the shutter release button there, so you don't have to keep your finger on here all the time. What else we got here? We have the info button, various different things. Nothing very exciting to worry about there. Second info button is cool. It changes to grid mode, so you can line up everything nice and straight. And also there's a, I don't know what you call one of these, but they're pretty cool. It's like a spirit level, but it goes like flying a plane. That's what it is. Down the bottom, we've got live view. Click that on and off, as I showed you earlier. And you can also change from camera to video. Camera, video, camera, video. Be careful that you're not putting it on video by accident, leaving it when you're taking photos, because if you do that, then you'll end up with 16:9 orientation ratio, which you might not want. What else? What else can I tell you? That is pretty much the basics of the camera. One other thing, I remember actually, just down the front here, there's an autofocus manual button. Pretty self-explanatory. Manual, autofocus, manual, autofocus, manual, autofocus. And that overrides everything here. There's a lot more stuff that it does, and we can go into that separately. If you guys want to know anything in particular about any particular area, I'll need to show you the menu in a bit more detail. But that is the general gist of it. Yeah. Thanks for watching.